prosperous morning for each and every one of you. Hello right there. I am Jovelyn Pitilo Tumibang, and today we will be discussing on the chapter 11, grading and reporting of assessment results. This is a very important topic. That's why you future educators right there, keep on listening, because this topic will really change your point of view regarding on grading. And also the reporting of assessment results. This is a very important topic as well, because this will showcase how to properly deal with the parents and other stakeholders regarding on the sharing of information about the grading of the student. So keep on track, everyone, and just listen. Let's start our discussion with the grading. The definition of grading. So what's the definition of grading? Grading is a process of assigning a numerical value, letter, or symbol to represent student knowledge and performance. These are called grades. Etymologically, a degree of measurement. A degree of measurement of the knowledge, of the performance of your students. So as a future educator over there, we should be attainable, we should be attentive when it comes to the performance of the students, because that's our basis of grading and not the other way around, okay? And we can represent grading through numerical values, a letter, or any symbol or word. It might be a fail, or it might be satisfactory. That kind of word is also a representation of a grading. And here in the Philippines, we usually use numerical value like 95% of grade, or 75 as our average, as our passing rate. Okay, let's proceed. We have here the 6 roles of grading according to Gosky 2004, and first in line here is the communication. The first is to communicate achievement status of students to parents and other stakeholders. So this grading serves as a communication, just like what I said earlier, if you remembered, the communication of a teacher and the parents and other persons involved, the stakeholders, and of course about the achievement of a child, about their grades, just like that. And we will in a PTA meeting, if you've been there in the PTA meeting, they will be discussing on that, on the grading system. And for the second one is to provide information to students for self-evaluation. So this grading is also important for the student, not just us for teachers. We will be the one who will compute the performance, compute the grades, and not the one who will work on with the grade, but the students. So this is a self-evaluation. If they want a higher grade, then they need to work hard for it, because that's how you will. Because the grading is a showcase of your effort, of your aside from your effort is your intelligence. And yeah. And then to select, identify, or sort students for specific programs. So we're going to categorize the students based on their grades. Whose students need a special programs, special things that needs to, like to cater more by the teachers, or another privileged programs for those who was not on top but is working well with their studies. And then to provide incentives for students to learn. So why we are in school, enable for us to learn. And this grading will be their external motivation. If they show their grades that, oh, it's so B, then that motivates them to work more. And if not, then it motivates them as well to work more. Depends on the teacher also to lift them up. And then for the fifth one, the second to the last, is to evaluate effectiveness of instructional programs. This is grading also is a very important factor in able to identify if the methods, the instructional programs, instructional things are effective, which the students can clearly understand, they can clearly put it in their mind, and then yeah. And then for the last one is to provide evidence of a student's lack of effort or inability to accept responsibility for inappropriate behavior. So just like what I said earlier, if they work hard, then they will receive grade, and if they don't, then might be the lowest. But I know as a student then you need to it's not just being smart, because I'm not smart, but it's more on working hard and studying. In Gosky 2004, the involvement of teachers, is very evident. That's why, as a teacher, we are also kind of subjective sometimes, and effort is clearly seen. That's why it sometimes alter the grading, the grade of a student, because we also see a teacher see also the effort of the student, But then, according to many experts, grading should not be contaminated by the effort, because it should be through the performance of the student academically, and effort is not counted on it. So the 6 roles of grading is being summarized into 4, and these are the communication, the feedback, the sorting, and the accountability. So the first one is the communication, and as I've shared kanina, communication is the sharing of ideas, and when it regards to the grading, so the sharing of information of the teacher to the parents and other people involved. And for the feedback, as indicated on the report card, the parents and the students can see there the the performance through that grades of the student. And for the sorting, categorizing the students, giving them more privileges, giving more special programs for the development of their learning. And then accountability, having these grades, it's the reflection of their effort, reflection of the the students' sleepless nights, and they are held accountable for that. And the teacher, the one who compute the grades of the students, but they can also pwede din silang pumunta sa teacher and then makasa sila bakit ganito yung grades ko, and then pakita naman ng teacher yung mga records niya, and then yes, papakita din ng teacher yung record, and then that's it. Malalaman nito yung student kung bakit ganito ganyan, and then everything settled like that. I hope so. And then let's move on to our new, not new topic, but a new slide. Analysis of assessment. We have a lot of people here. The Mutual, Nieminen, Thomas, and Borgit 2009 wrote that the grade has two critical elements. The analysis of assessment data and interpretation is the first one, and communication of grades is the second one. In analyzing assessment data, it is indicated, it is not highlighted in my PowerPoint, but it is highlighted in the idea that the analyzing of assessment databases is only the student learning and performance, and there's no effort. Such a thing is a kind of kasali there. Okay, here the assessment data, I put the red flags over there because I think that represents these three words. The providing incentives for perfect attendance, good conduct, extracurricular activities, it is not part of the assessment data. So it's not part of the assessment data. Yes, it's not the extracurricular activities. If your teacher telling you that you sumali ka dun sa mga extracurricular activities para lumaki yung grades mo, para malift mo pa yung grades mo, so hindi pala siya kasali doon sa assessment data dapat. And then yung good conduct, yung pagiging mabait mo, yung pagiging cheerful mo, yung mga ganun-ganyan, hindi din pala siya kasali. But then it's a very important behavior of a student, because a classroom or a school is not just about learning, it's about also growing emotionally and intelligently. And emotionally, or your behaviors is also a very important one, despite of the fact that hindi pala siya included sa grading system. And also providing incentives for perfect attendance, hindi din pala siya kasali sa grading dapat. So that's the red flags of assessment data, kasi hindi nila binavalue dito yung effort. But then hindi pa rin talaga maiiwasan na sa assessment data magkakaroon ng altering of the grades, kasi nga meron itong tatlo. The providing incentives for perfect attendance, the good conduct, or curricular activities. So sinasali para talaga nila yan. That's out of the that contradicts the idea of this people right here, the Mutual, Nieminen, Thomas, and Berkey 2009, because it's indicated here that it must make sure that grades reflect student learning and performance, and not with the this attendance, with this good conduct, the extracurricular activities. Yeah. So that's the negative, not the negative, but maybe things that alters the grading system and the function of the assessment data in analyzing an assessment data, because there's it's unavoidable naman talaga na merong other factors na maisali aside from that student learning and performance lang, diba? Proceed to the next slide. To prevent issues concerning marking, one should remember that the basis for grading should only be the student's scholastic performance. This is a policy contained in section 144 of the Manual of Regulations for Private Basic Education. So it's very clear now that the grading should only be, the basis should only be the scholastic performance of the students, as indicated on this 144, section 144. Read the statement here in section 144 of the Manual of Regulations for Private Basic Education. The final grade or rating given to a pupil or student in a subject should be based solely on his scholastic performance. Any addition or diminution to the grade in a subject for co-curricular activities, attendance, or misconduct shall not be allowed, except as may otherwise be explicitly provided by an individual school in an appropriate issuance or publication, and provided further that such adjustment is relevant to the subject content and requirements. In the elementary level, the misconduct of a pupil may affect his grade in character education. So it's a very clear statement that attendance, co-curricular activities, and other misconduct are not allowed in giving grades for students. It's indicated on the section 144. But however, if the institution naman po is nagpasa po sila ng publication or issuance na pwede, or ano ba yung nakalagay dun sa publication na yun about grading, then tapos na-approve siya, then it's okay. But then if hindi naman, so hindi pala siya pwede. Pero yung behavior mo naman, meron naman tayong tinatawag na character education, so as part of your subject in elementary. So if ever na hindi ka maganda, or if ever na maganda yung behavior mo, then lalaki yung grades mo for character education. But if you are doing a lot of misconduct and everything, then there's a circumstances maliit na yung grado mo. So, ganun, doon siya maapektuhan sa performance mo doon sa character education, sa behavior mo doon sa character education. And when it talks talaga sa without the basis, doon lang talaga tayo sa what we call this, as our basis for grading without naman na hindi siya kasali sa subject, and it's unincluded daw po. Let's proceed to interpretation and communication of grades. The main purpose of grading is to communicate information to students and parents about student achievement or goal attainment. That's according to the People, Nitko, and Brockhart 2011. So if you still remember, the first goal, no, not the goal, but the first role of grading by Koski 2004, it's indicated there about the communication, to communicate achievement of students to the parents and other stakeholders. So here in the interpretation and communication of grades, it is highlighted that it is the main purpose, the communication. It is the main purpose of grading, the communication of the students and the parents and other persons involved. Because parents needs to know also the performance of their students, because that is the reflection of the performance and the knowledge of the students. May natutunan kayang anak ko, okay kayang performance nito sa school, so it can be showcased there in the grading, in the report card. The idea of a parent and a teacher about grading is somehow different. Meron talaga mga chances nga different yung opinions mo regarding about grading. And as a teacher, we should be the one to initiate on how to properly explain things. And according to Waltman, first in 1994, they explained that a grade can be explained in narrative or absolute terms. When we say relative, it means that it can be compared to, the children can be compared to to its other peers, people he or she is surrounded with. And when it talks about absolute terms, there is a set standard. It can describe growth and achievement over time, or status of achievement at a certain marking period. So it can be described out through the growing process of a child over time, or it's just the status of a child progress in a specific period of time. It can focus only on academic achievement or reflect on non-academic achievements like disposition and neatness. Now let's move on to the next slide. According to Kospezin and Boric 2010, marking systems have two dimensions of marking systems. So we have here the types of comparison. When we say the types of comparison, we're going to compare the performance of the children, of the students, to its peers. And for the types of symbols, this is how are we going to represent the performance of that students. For them, marks are cumulative grades that reflect academic achievement. You may come across other sources that say the opposite. So we will be discussing the types of comparisons. And are you ready? Okay, let's go. Now let's proceed on discussing the types of comparison. We have here the norm and the criterion. I know you are familiar with this. Let's start first with the norm. So as indicated in the meaning, it is the student's performance. The student's performance is interpreted in relation to the performance of other students. So your score is being, your performance is being compared to your peers. So just like for instance, napa-exam yung teacher nyo, and then the pinakamataas po na nakuha na grade ng inyong score ng inyong klase is 20, and then yun po yung basis ng teacher ninyo, yung i-compare sa scores ninyo. And then when it talks about criterion, students' performance is interpreted through established standards. So meron po talaga tayo nakaset na mga standards na kailangan mong ma-surpass and able for you to pass. So that's it. Now let us discuss the danger in criterion reference grading. Inexperienced teachers may have some difficulty setting reasonable expectations of students. There are those who are accustomed to norm reference grading and may still operate on that basis. Some teachers water down the performance of students because of the view that only a small percentage of students deserve high grades. Similarly, the notion that only a small percentage of students should have low grades influences some teachers to assess students at a lower cognitive level to compensate for previous assessments which students found difficulty. This means that criterion reference grading, while aiming to measure students' performance against clear standards, faces challenges. Inexperienced teachers might struggle to set realistic expectations, while others, accustomed to grading on a curve, may unintentionally revert to comparing students against each other. So magkakaroon sila ng competitions. Some teachers might lower their standards, believing only a few students deserve top marks. So nagiging bias na din si teacher. Conversely, others might simplify assessments to avoid giving low grades, ultimately undermining the system's integrity and accuracy. So nagiging simple yung assessments mo kasi feeling mo hindi nila makukuha yung kapag feeling mo mababagsak sila kapag ganito yung tatatasan mo yung level of difficulty ng iyong paggawa ng assessment. So it's a negative way daw. So dapat in-encourage mo yung mga bata na mag-aral para matuto, and also it's about the teachers teaching din naman talaga. It's pedagogy, and Here in our next slide, we have Johansson 1993. He remarked that a compromise approach employing both absolute and relative approaches would be desirable. The same with the study conducted by Wonkman and Fresby 1994. A significant number of teachers and parents believe that grades carry both norm and criterion reference meanings. So both of this people agreed that in the grading system there should be two approaches, an absolute and a relative approach, or a norm and a criterion one, in which hindi lang siya nakabase sa standards lang talaga or criterion, but also in a relative or in a norm. For our next slide, we have Kozpezin and Borek 2010. Identify 3 other comparisons where grades are based from. We have comparison with aptitude, effort, and potential improvement. What are those 3? We will be discussing that later on. And for Nitko and Brockhart 2011, he combined comparison with aptitude and potential improvement and called it self-referencing. So let's discuss what are these 3 and what does this self-referencing mean. Okay, in aptitude-based ability reference grading systems, the question is how high or low is the student's grade with respect to what he or she can do. So, tinatanong kung align ba yung grado mo and yung mga thing na kaya mong gawin. So, kinu-question yung ability mo because it is ability reference. So, that is aptitude-based. And regarding about the achievement with effort, in a system that compares achievement with effort, the question to address is how much work did the student put into the test assessment. So, it's about the effort of the student. Kung gaano siya naghirap doon para makuha na yung grade na yon. So, paano siya naghirap para matake yung exam na yon? Nag-study ba siya before the exam or ahead pa sa exam na yon? And then, yun, the effort. Nag-effort ba siya or hindi? And then for the last one, the comparison with improvement, growth reference, puts premium on students' progress. It focuses on this question, did the student improve? So, did the student improve? Meron bang progress? Nag-improve ba siya? So, ganun yung comparison with improvement since it is a growth reference. So again, what are those 3? So we have the aptitude-based, we have the achievement, and we have the comparison with improvement. Now let's move on to the approaches to grading. Local and international schools offering basic and tertiary education use codes in reporting student progress and achievement. So we will be discussing now here the things that you will see in your report cards and how your grades are being reflected, on how your grades are being represented, and I know you will enjoy this discussion. Let's proceed. So we have here, as you can see, the types of grade notations. We have 5, the numerical grades, the letter grades, 2 category grades, checklists, and the standard based. So let's start first on the numerical grades. As you can see in your elementary report card before or now, you can see that there's 100, 199, 98, or any numbers that represent, in your report card, that represents your grade. And 75 is the passing grade, 75 above, and then below is, which means it's a fail grade. And for the second one is the letter grades. Your grade is being represented with the use of a letter, an A, B, C, D, E, or A plus, B plus, just like that. And we don't usually see that. We don't usually use that here in the Philippines. But in American institution, in American elementary schools, high schools, that's the grading approaches they use. But here in the Philippines, we usually use numerical values, right? And number that represents our grades. And for the third one is 2 category grades: the pass or fail, satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So when we say pass, then that's a good thing because you passed. And if it's a fail, you need improvement, and yeah, it's a fail. And satisfactory, you had gained the satisfactory. You were able to set this. You were able to surpass the standards. You were able to achieve it. You were able to pass it. And satisfactory, that's the word. And unsatisfactory is the other way around. The same with the fail. And now we have the checklist. So there's a specific set standards, and then the teacher will come to check. Then that's the checklist. And then the standard based, the advanced, the proficient, the beginning, or similar. So this is the most, what do you call this? Most recognizable and the most clear when it comes to the performance. If it's advanced, if it's proficient, beginning, or similar. But standards are broader and at a higher level than criteria of performance. As indicated here in our next slide, in the Philippines, the K-12 rating system is standards-based, as it measures how students are able to reach the standards in terms of content and performance. So it is a standard-based. There is a specific standards that we need to surpass as students. And we're dealing with the curriculum, and we're fighting for the curriculum in order for us to pass, and not on our peers. And on the next sentence, in higher education, many schools follow the grade point system of 1 to 5, where 1 and 5 are the highest and lowest possible grade, respectively. So just like, for instance, in our school in Mindanao State University Buog campus, the numerical values that use and able to represent our grades is with the use of 1 as the highest grade, and 5 the failing grade. There are primary and secondary schools that do not enforce grades because they believe it is harmful for students. So there are institutions here in the Philippines. I wasn't able to browse in the internet on what school are those, but they don't employ or enforce grades, because for them it will result negatively for the mental health of the students, and aside from that, it will build the competition for students, so it's not good. That's why they don't implement grading systems or grade in their academic journey in their primary and secondary school. As indicated in our next slide, Pavan 1992 noted that there are several researchers which indicated that students enrolled in non-graded schools do as well or better than students in traditional classes in terms of academic achievement and mental health. In the Philippines, Angelicum College is a pioneer of the non-graded system of education. So this Angelicum College, it is an institution in which they offer non-graded system of education. And according to the researchers says that the non-graded institution works more better academically and in their mental well-being is much more better compared to those traditional classes, as indicated here in the slide, according to Pavan 1992. Now let us proceed to grading issues. Nitko and Brookhart 2011 mentioned that there are 7 issues concerning summative grading. These issues must be addressed to make valid inferences and evaluation of student and performance. So what are the 7 issues? Let's discuss. Let's start with the number 1 grading issue. Consider what type of student performance has you need. Formative assessments do not carry a grade. They are used to improve learning and prepare students for summative assessments. Teachers should identify the grading of variables which must be assessed and reported. So formative assessment is a non-graded activity, or a question during a discussion is not graded, but it is a preparation of a student for a real assessment, for a summative assessment. For the second one, consider how to make marking scales consistent throughout the marking period. Scoring scales in assessments should be carefully chosen. Scores from different scales cannot be directly added. In the K-12 rating systems, row scores and rubric scores are transformed to percentage scores. These are fine grade scores that show differences in learning levels of students. The final rating may then be converted using a coarse grained scale. And for the third grading issue, decide on the grade components and their respective weights. In the basic education level, there are weights of each assessment component. In the tertiary level, it is institutional. Nonetheless, teachers are chiefly responsible in providing quality classroom assessments, those that are valid, reliable, and fair. And for the fourth one, consider the standards or boundaries for each letter grade. Once identified, these should be followed across all subjects to maintain the same standard of quality and comparability. Continue for the fifth grading issue. Decide on borderline cases. Nitko and Brookhart 2011 asserted that raising or lowering grades is valid when additional assessment evidences support it. They reasoned that assessment results contain measurement errors. Thus, the grade of a student who is a point away from the passing mark or another student whose grade is at the boundary between 2 grades may be adjusted if there is additional achievement information that warrants such modification. And second to the last grading issue stated that be concerned with the issue of failures. Nitko and Brookhart 2011 explained that failure may be one of 2 things: failing work or failing to try. When a student receives a failing mark or grade, it means that the student consistently displayed poor performance in comparison to the learning targets or stated standards. For a student who failed to try, for example, the learner was not able to submit or accomplish an assessment. It is not valid to assign a failing mark or grade. This is because the learner's failure to try may be due to some reason not reflected of his ability or achievement. Nonetheless, the learner's neglect or failure to complete or submit school requirements has to be reported to the parents. And lastly, be concerned with the practice of assigning 0 for a mark. The issue of assigning a 0 for missed assessments is whether or not it is fair practice that results to an accurate mark of student performance. Teachers employ this practice to penalize irresponsible students and elicit acceptable behavior, according to Guski 2004. The impact of 0 varies depending on the weight of the component. Macmillan 1999 and Nitko and Brookhart 2011 presented alternatives to 0 marking. Substitute the lowest possible or bottom of the grading scale, for example, 60 or 65. Base the grades only on those turned in. Or C, substitute 0 for the missing assignment but use the median rather than the mean, since the former is not sensitive to outliers. And that's what we call extreme data values. Meanwhile, Guski 2004 suggested giving an incomplete or reporting multiple grades on different aspects of student performance. So it's better if incomplete compared to assigning 0 for a mark. It's such a very negative mark. At this moment, we are now discussing the report card. It is a common method of reporting a learner's abilities and progress. When you say report card, I know you are all familiar with that, and your grades are being indicated there, the report card. It contains a learner's numerical or letter grades plus other relevant information. So, nandun yung maka-Diyos, maka-tao, your values and everything. It is periodically submitted by school to the parents. Yes, through PTE meeting or whenever na mayroon pong ipapatawag na meeting, yung teacher. Note that grade books and report cards may vary in format. So it depends on the format of the institution or the school. So hindi talaga siya as in uniform na lahat ng school same po ng cards, no. It depends on the school. In the Philippines, the report card is known as DepEd Form 138E. So instead of report card, yung tawag po siyang DepEd Form 138E. It is issued 2 weeks after the rating period and returned duly signed by the parents. So kapag nagpapatawag ng meeting si teacher, tapos ibibigay yung card, tapos pipirmahan yun sa back kasi meron yung signatures na needs for specific na grading moment, like first semester, second semester ba yan, or first grading, second grading, ganun. It contains the rating per grading period and the final rating of each learning area. It also contains an attendance record. Yes, nandun po siya. If meron po kayong absent, makikita po doon. And a report on the learner's observed values. Just like what I said earlier, makikita po doon yung mga ka-Diyos, mga tama, your values. Academic ratings are also contained in the student's permanent record or tinatawag din natin Form 137E. Now let's discuss the principles of effective grading and reporting. Tomlinson and McTay, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, 2006 discussed 6 key principles of fair and effective grading and reporting. By following these principles, students may become more motivated to learn as grades accurately describe their actual performance. So what are these 6 key principles for fair and effective grading? Let's discover it together. Let's get started. For number 1, grades and reports should be based on clearly specified learning goals and performance standards. Grades should reflect achievement of learning standards. They should have qualitative descriptions of quality of work students have shown or produced. So there should be an accurate grades that reflects the hard work, the performance of the students. There's a standards that is being surpassed, that are being clearly targeted and pointed out by the students, and they will get the achievement that they deserved by the reflection of their grades. For number 2, evidence used for grading should be valid. Students should be assessed on what they are taught. Grades should not be influenced by non-academic criteria like attendance, social behaviors, attitudes, among others. This model the final grade, reducing the validity of interpretation. This is known as hodgepodge grading. So hodgepodge grading pala siya, guys. Yung kapag basis lang natin is mga invalid po siya ng mga reference for grading or evidences for grading like attitudes, the social behaviors, the attendance. So it's called hodgepodge grading. Additionally, a student grade should not be based on a one-time assessment that spells either success or utter disaster for students. So kailangan meron talagang valid na mga evidences that entails na you deserve that grade. You are worthy with that grade. Kasi you hit the standards, you hit the target, your academic excellence is high in which you deserve having that particular grade. Because we're able to get that grade based on the set standards. Number 3, grading should be based on established criteria. Instead of using a norm reference system, grades should mirror how learners have attained the learning targets. Teachers should work towards ensuring that students in the class achieve mastery. Fourth, not everything should be included in grades. As mentioned in the previous segment, assessments for formative purposes are all about feedback. That's why it's not included in the grading system. They are documented as evidences of progress, as a preparation for formative assessment, and not for, it's not part of a thing that needs to be graded. Summative assessments are the accountability measures that determine what students can or cannot do after an instructional unit. So after the formative assessment, after the discussion, so we have the summative assessment in which it assesses the learning of the student after the discussion. So ano yung mga natutunan ng bata? So that assess the learning of the learner. For the second to the last, avoid grading based on averages. O'Connor and Wormley 2011 claimed that averaging grades or scores falsifies grade reports. Deviations in performance that occur during the learning process should not be included. Suppose a student obtained a low score in the first test, but was able to get a high mark in the second test on the same topic. It would be incorrect to average them out, but instead choose the second assessment as a valid indicator of mastery. Lastly, focus on achievement and report other factors separately. It was already pointed out that academic elements should be reported separately from non-academic factors. Although separate, not academic factors can be used to support student learning.